You are listening to the When I Said Yes podcast, where we are simplifying and accelerating your success by helping you find your next yes. Oh yeah, you know what time it is. You are listening to the When I Said Yes podcast, and I'm your host, Darryll Stinson. And today I've got a very special guest with me that's going to help us say yes to building our wealth. That's right. Everyone's favorite topic, more money. And my special guest today is one of my friends and one of my financial advisors and wealth coaches, Stephen Stack. Stephen Stack is a Clemson graduate, forgive him for that. He has a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering, and he's now based in Charlotte, North Carolina as a sales manager with Shell Oil Company. Through discipline, he became a millionaire and 100% debt-free, including his home, by age 32. He did this by living within his means to build a strong investment portfolio through avenues such as real estate and investment funds. In addition, Stephen also does business consulting as well as coaching in personal finance for those in the community and beyond. Through business and financial savvy, he has yielded great results, and he credits all of his success to his faith in God. He's been married for nearly 10 years, and he has 3 young children and an amazing wife. In addition to family and work, he serves with the King Movement, which is where he and I met, and as a national board member and Charlotte chapter president. This guy is gifted because he also serves musically as a vocalist and small group leader at Transformation Church in South Carolina. Y'all, if you're ready to build wealth, say yes to listening to this episode. Stay tuned. I first met you at the National King Summit, which is founded by Chris Broussard, and it is designed to empower men. And they had their national summit here in Atlanta, and I got invited by Dr. Joseph Bryant and met you there. And never going to forget this, man. You talk about making a first impression. I mean, you can always tell people you're going to connect with just because, I don't know, they got good attitudes a lot of the time. Like they're just happy to be where they at, and they're not trying to jockey for an autograph or whatever. And you just had this piece about you. And so you and I just started chopping it up. We were just hanging out. I don't even remember what we said to each other. And then we exchanged contact information. And you send me a smiling picture of you just so I could remember the face. And I'm just like, this dude is different. And so me being like, okay, I'm sending him one back. So we actually swapped facial or selfies. And then I saw you at the huddle a little later, and then we just connected. And then now, man, we real tight. And so, I admire your personality, your integrity. I love that you can talk about a subject like money, which tends to be worshiped, and not worship it, right? And it's kind of rare to find someone who can really help other people build wealth and really not make it about the money either, and keep God first. And so that's what I like about you, man. And so you are qualified to teach on this subject. You've got the right heart, and you obviously have the mind for it and the results to prove it. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit more context into your journey, and let's just talk about how we can say yes to our wealth building legacy.
Man, well, first off, thanks for having me on here. That's an awesome story that you shared of swapping the picture. That's funny, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. And just a little bit about me is that I when I was growing up as a young person, I thought a little bit differently. So I would still do a lot of things that my friends would do. I loved playing outside, playing tag or basketball and football and baseball and video games and all different things like that coming up as a kid. But I realized pretty quickly that there were things that I thought about at a young age that a lot of people my age weren't thinking about. So an example would be that we would go on family vacations and we would stay in a motel. So not a hotel, a motel where you could pull your car up to the door of where you were going to stay. And if you're in your room and you open the door, boom, your car is like right there. You're actually outside. And so I can remember us doing these family vacations and being like, man, I wonder who owns this hotel at the age of 8, of just sitting back and saying, okay, like if we're paying, $65 a night or $100 a night to stay here as a family, I wonder who owns this and how much money do they get from all of this? Because I see the folks who are working the reception desk, and I see, we got people in housekeeping they're doing a good job of making it a nice stay, but somebody actually owns this hotel. And I just wonder how much they're making because I don't see them here, but they are making something from it. So that was some of my mindset from an early age of just trying to think about wealth. But then also, on the other hand, being brought up in a Christian home where I was inspired by biblical characters like Solomon,
Mm-hmm.
who had an opportunity to ask God for anything, and he asked God for wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And because of it, God said, man, I'm going to add all this other stuff to it
Right.
because you asked me for wisdom.
Right.
And so that that was something that just really imprinted on me from a young age. And then it spun forward of me having a mentality that says, hey, I want to be able to build wealth, but
Right.
I don't want to make wealth my God. And
Mm.
so that's how I've gotten here.
So were you always on the up and up, or, and I don't mean like from birth, I just mean like from the moment you made that decision of like, man, I want to build wealth, I want to be wealthy. I don't want to have to say no to something because I don't have the money or the credit score to do it. Were you in a good financial position, or were you in crises, right? So I know some people start off that journey because they're like, man, I'm in debt. I'm tired of being in debt. I don't want to be broke anymore. Where were you at when you made that decision?
So I was in a fairly good space, is what I would say. My parents are salt of the earth people, um, so didn't come from some mega wealth. But on the other hand, too, I wasn't starting far behind either.
Hmm.
So I didn't start in debt
Hmm.
or behind the 8 ball at the beginning. I did at least have a firm kind of foundation to build off of from my parents talking about things around money. And here's what I'll say is that my parents were really savers.
Hmm.
So they lived within their means. They didn't do a whole lot of investing,
Hmm.
but they were good about at least saving. And for them, investing would be putting money into a certificate of deposit or a bank CD.
Right.
So they were getting an interest rate as FDIC insured. But as far as any kind of like true blue investing, if you're
Hmm.
thinking like real estate or the stock market, that wasn't really their thing.
Right.
Um, so so yeah, that's what I would say. And I saw my dad. I'll answer this too. I saw that my dad, he owned his own business. He was an
Hmm.
entrepreneur, worked hard, and did a great job with it. And one of the things that always kind of struck me is I'm like, hey, I love his diligence, and I thank God for him because I have diligence too because of watching him. But I always would sit back and say, man, I want to be in a space where the money I make works at least as hard as I do, if not
Mm.
harder,
Mm.
so that I can be quote unquote work optional.
Mm. Now, was that just something that just like came to your mind, or was it because you started to see people living a different way? Like, what was it that made you want to go from just like, I just want to be out of debt, to like, I want to make my money work harder for me? or at least as hard as me. Like, what made you make that shift in your mind?
Well, honestly, it was from reading. Like,
Mhm,
so I when I would see things like using a CD, a bank CD, I'm like, wow, this bank is paying me money just for holding the money, like just me putting it in an account, they're going to pay me interest. What other things are out there that I can set money in that will just pay me
mm,
because I've set money into it? And so I, just began to ask questions and just try to read books and started coming across a lot of different investors, whether real estate or stock market, like a Warren Buffett, if you're thinking, stock market type investing, that made me say, hey, where can I go with this?
mhm. Love it, man. Um, Help us out on, there's people here that say, man, I want my home to be paid off. I want my money to work harder than I work. How do I get there? What are some steps that I can take to really accelerate? I hate that word because I don't want to make it seem like get rich quick, but that I can really streamline my wealth building process by learning from what you know.
So the first thing that I would say is if you've already got the mindset, which that's one of the things I love about you, Darryl, is you do a lot of focus on mindset. We can't go further than our thinking.
Hmm.
So if we already have the mindset there, then what I would say is, hey, what are you interested in? Like, what are some spaces of where you would want to make money? So I'm gonna give you an example of what I mean.
Hmm.
So I like shoes. If you follow with that, they'll call these people sneakerheads.
Right.
They like shoes. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, it's cool to have some nice shoes to be able to wear that are cool. Um, but how can I look at this in a way that brings me assets that can produce income for me, can generate wealth for me?
Right.
And so I would think about an investment like a Nike of, okay, well, I want to have enough money built up to where I can buy the equivalent of the shoes I want and that same amount in stock in that company,
Hmm.
just as a way to start
That's
in
good.
building assets.
Mm,
So you can look at things that you actually use, and of course there's things where I'll do things of financial coaching of helping people. What are they looking at with investments to say, okay, this is something I use. Does the company actually have a good business model, and how do they make money, and are they in a good financial position? But at the beginning, I would say start with things that you already understand
mhm,
and build from there. So maybe if you are a general contractor, maybe you want to start looking at things around real estate
mhm,
because you already have an understanding of how to fix things, how to do the repairs yourself, and maybe you want to start with a rental property or doing a house flip
mhm.
where you purchase a property, fix it up, and sell it for more
Right.
in the acquisition costs and the repairs. So I think it's important that we start with what we know,
Mhm,
what we're already familiar with, so it's easy to understand how money is made,
mhm,
and then push to do research in that space and how you can make money or find people that are already making money in that area and get connected with them.
mm. That's really good. Really good, man. One of the things that frustrates me is when we talk about your I just did a post about this on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was about your net worth being determined by your network, right? And that used to
Mhm.
always frustrate me when I was more broke. Because I was like, what am I supposed to do? Just go up to rich people and be like, hey, will you be my friend? Like how does one actually change the relationships. And so I want a little bit of how, but more so of why. Like why is it so important to change your relationships in order to build your wealth?
Wow. Yeah. So there's actually a passage in scripture that says that bad company corrupts good character.
Hmm.
And so it really does matter who we're around, because they're going to help shape what we think about, what we're talking about, how we view certain things. If you have people that are around you that have more of an investment mindset or a owner mindset or an acquisition type of mindset versus a consumer mindset,
Hmm.
it's going to shape how you think about things
Hmm.
and how you look at them.
Okay,
So,
stop. Come on. You got to talk about that. Because that is huge. And I remember, like, I was kind of like you growing up. Like, I would think differently than the average person. So I wouldn't necessarily think of who owns that. I think for me, I was always interested in how things fit together. So I would be like, how is this thing even operating? Right. Even I remember going to like my first major city and I would look at it and I'd be like, man, you know what? Like, who decided like that we were gonna put six skyscrapers here? And like, why would you need an entire skyscraper in order
mm,
to run a business? Like, what is the mindset of the person that goes, in order for me to do the business I need to do in the earth, I need a skyscraper building, not virtual employees, not a couple of satellite locations, but I need literally a giant enterprise in the middle of the city. Like that fascinated me. And other kids was just, trying to break windows or, or like just trying to take pictures with the building, like, and I'm over here thinking about how does this work? And so I always had that curious mind.
mm.
And I would never be able to describe it. And I did read a book or hear somebody speak, and they talked about the difference between an owner mentality and a consumer mentality. And I was like, I think like that. Like, talk about the difference in even you can even broaden it to say a poverty mentality versus an abundant mentality. What would you say are some key phrases or thinking patterns that really can help people elevate that mindset?
So, man, you packed a lot into that just stretch. Um, Man, there's so much that comes to mind when I think about this, and I'm the type of person that is try to help give people uh, opportunities to look at things different. So I'm a tell you a story because I
Okay.
love to be a storyteller. So
Okay.
had had a friend that asked me to help him with some business consulting, just helping him with his business. And so there were some things that I did to ultimately help him pull in a few new clients that he was having some trouble getting their business. And so he said, "Hey, man, I know you like shoes, man. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you to the premium outlets. So they have a Charlotte premium outlet store. Said I'm going to take you there to the Nike outlet store, and you can pick any shoe you want from the store, and I'm going to pay for it just out of appreciation for you helping me out." And I told this friend, I said, "Man, that is awesome. I appreciate that gesture. Here's what I want you to do is, instead of buying me a pair of shoes, I want you to buy me some Nike stock that will equate to what you are willing to spend on the shoes." And so we had an agreement there, but he never forgot what I said,
Hmm.
because it gave him a shift
Yep.
to where, instead of thinking about, hey, let me help my friend Steven Stack consume, it was, hey, let me help him acquire,
Yes. Love it.
to get
Love
an
it.
asset.
Love it.
because
Love it.
the reality is, as soon as I wear those shoes, they're going to start depreciating
Right.
because they'll be worn. They won't be brand new,
Hmm.
and someone's going to pay less than whatever the retail price was for them. Versus those shares, I've gotten capital appreciation as well as they pay a quarterly dividend as well.
Right. Right. And what would you say, just for clarity's sake, because I know sometimes people have different definitions. What would you say is your definition of the difference between an asset and a liability?
So, in its simplest form, an asset is something that has positive worth. That
Mhm.
that that is the simplest way to put it. And a liability is something that has negative worth. And so, to give an example, if I have $500 in a bank account, it's worth $500. So it would be an asset. Um, some would say, okay, if you have a vehicle, it depends on what the numbers are on whether or not it's an asset or a liability. So if I have a car that it's worth $10,000 and I owe $12,000, it's a liability because if I sell it, I get the 10 grand, but then I have to pay the lender 2,000. The
Right.
the gap. I have to take my 10 grand, give it to them,
Right.
plus add 2,000 to it. Now, if it's still worth $10,000 and I owe $4,000
Hmm.
on it, now it's an asset because it's worth $6,000 more
Hmm.
than what's owed.
Hmm.
So that's a simple, easy way to look at an asset. Is
Right.
just is it worth more than, does it have a positive worth?
Right. Right. So walk us through some first steps we should take, considering we've got our mindset right, considering that our mentality has started to shift from a consumer to a owner, and we are living within our means. Where would someone start with you? How would the coaching process look like?
So the first thing that I always like to look at, and Darryll, you know this, we even did this together. The first
Hmm.
thing I want to know is what is your actual setup? Like
Right.
what is your actual financial situation?
Hmm.
Because if I don't know that, it's like opening a book and starting midway through the book and then trying to determine what's going on with the book.
Right. And let me just pause here because it's important that you said something, and you might not catch this if you're not into wealth building yet. Is the financial situation is not just your budget, right? Typically, if you're just getting started on this journey, you're just thinking about, like, I just need to make more money, right, and pay my bills, and you're only thinking about your budget. But the whole financial situation is a more complete picture than that. What benefits do you have? Do you have 401k? Do you have anything in stock? What debts do you owe? What are your monthly payments? Like, it's just more of a complete picture in terms of your entire financial situation. So I just wanted to pause for those who are at the beginning of this journey, just to say, like, hey, we're not just talking about budget, and there are some things that you can do to start moving forward, even making the same amount of money that you're making right now. Okay, so continue.
Right. No, that's a good distinction to make because depending on where you stand, the investment that may need to be made is, I really need to tackle this credit card debt that has 30% interest and get a 30% return on those dollars by paying it down. So that's why I say it's important to just at least understand where we're at. But let's say that everything's good and well, or just in a reasonably manageable position. Because I'm not, if you don't catch anything do not feel like, hey, I don't make enough money to invest.
Mm.
That is more of that poverty type of mindset to say, oh, well, investing is only for the wealthy.
Mhm.
No, investing is for everyone. What you're saying is, hey, I'm putting monies aside to build over time. I want it to grow in addition to what I actually put into it myself. So, with that being said, yes, I would want to look at someone's situation like, what are your work benefits? Do you have a 401k? Does your company do a match? How much is that match? Or hey, if you have your own business, are you doing any kind of retirement contributions within the different allowances that the IRS has that one can do? Or do you want to look at something like a Roth IRA, which is after tax money, versus a 401k, or a traditional IRA is pre-tax money? So there's a lot of things to consider. And then if we're taking advantage of those things, then also starting to look at, okay, what kind of investing can I do beyond that? Of, okay, I'm in a good space there. Now I want to look at investing in the market, whether it be index funds or mutual funds, or using things called ETFs, which are exchange traded funds,
Mhm.
where you can actually invest by sector. So you can invest in the technology
Mhm.
sector, or the health sector, or
Mhm.
industrials, or consumer sector. So there you have that, and then you can walk it all the way to the most direct of individual companies, where you're saying, hey, I want to invest in this company, or that company, and having an understanding of what you're looking at. And here's what I would say with all of this stuff on getting started beyond the 401k, beyond like a Roth IRA, is there's a ton of different ways to do that. There's all kinds of platforms. There's commission free trading,
Mhm.
whether it be from the more household names like TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, E Trade, Fidelity, so on and so forth, to some of the newer school folks, like Robinhood, or different entities like that, which just allow you to be able to invest. And whatever you use, pay attention, y'all, lean in.
Mhm.
It should be SIPC insured, which what that means is that if this brokerage were to go up in flames, that you could transfer whatever your holdings are into another brokerage.
Mm.
So if it does not have that, if it doesn't say SIPC, then I wouldn't mess with it.
You just saved some people a lot of money.
Yes.
And a lot of heartache. Oh man, man, man. I already knew this was going to happen, like, because I've had coaching sessions with you where it's like, oh man, this dude knows his stuff. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to continue to unpack this and not give people an opportunity to implement. So I'm going to say we're going to have to bring you back, because what I want people to do right now is, number one, everything starts with a decision, right? So are you going to decide to say yes to building your wealth journey? Okay. And the moment you say yes to building that wealth journey, bam, you started the journey. You are in the car driving. You are not in park. You are not planning. You are not putting anything in the GPS. You are headed in the right direction. Now you have some guiding principles from Stephen. You know, mindset is important. You know what to look for. You know to start with something you're already interested in. What a great word of advice. And you have some way to make sure you look at your whole financial situation to start eliminating liabilities, increasing assets. Okay. Um, Two things I want to know from you as we land this plane. Thing number one is book recommendations. Thing number two is how can someone follow you, work with you, and really just if they connect with you, reach out to you. Let us know those two things.
Okay. I would say reading from a book standpoint, almost anything written by Peter Lynch is going to be a good read for you.
Hmm.
There's one that I'm drawing a little bit of a blank of the exact title, but it's something around beating Wall Street or a leg up on Wall Street, something like that. But you can look at it. It's Peter Lynch. He's the author of the book. Um, if you want one, it's a little bit more of a drier read, but there's still a lot of good information in it. The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham. That's
Hmm.
a good read, but I'd say start with the Peter Lynch. It'll at least give you a
Right.
good feel where he really talks about investing in stuff that you already understand. So that's there on reading. As far as following me along, Darryll knows I'm finally on Instagram. I did it 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I made a page so you can follow me at Stacking with Stack, and that's STACKING with Stack on Instagram. I share a lot of good, encouraging content on there around building wealth holistically. So not even just thinking about finances, but just overall
Right.
in a healthy way
Right.
of being in a good space. Um, if you wanted to try to catch me by email, you could just reach out to me at Stephen with a V, STEVEN dot stack
Right.
at gmail.com to get in contact with me. And as far as financial coaching, uh, I run the whole gamut from helping make a plan around your finances, helping with paying off debt, giving a clear picture of how to do that, and also investment education. So at least just getting an understanding of what you're looking at. And I do have people who will ask me for recommendations of, hey, what am I investing in? So I give my thought process on the investments that I am making. And you can do your due diligence. If you agree with it, then I would say go on ahead and invest. But I speak to the stuff that I'm actually doing.
That's good. I love that, man. So I want to encourage you guys to work with Steven. He's one of the people that is helping me build wealth. And so I technically paid him to be on this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. But man, so thankful for you. Thankful for your heart. You guys reach out to him. Follow him on IG. He does post some really transparent, helpful material. He doesn't just talk about good advice. He is talking about stuff that he's doing. I love some of the posts I've seen where you're like, I talked about this months ago and look what happened. Like, listen, and so definitely follow him. And man, I'm so excited to bring you back for part two. Now, listen, um, before I bring him back, I need to know from you, what did you put into action? Okay. Did you finally get a clear picture of your financial situation? Right. You can't conquer what you're not willing to confront. You can't fix what you don't if you don't know what's broken. So have you taken a look at your entire financial situation? Do you have a coach? Looked up somebody like Steven to coach you through this process, to streamline it for you so you don't make the same mistakes and have to spend years and years learning the information that he already knows? Okay. I want to know, if you don't have a coach, do you have a coach? If you haven't had a budget, do you have a budget? If you don't know your financial situation, do you know your financial situation? If you haven't started investing because you thought it was for the wealthy, you learned today that it's for everybody. Have you started investing? Have you looked at the entire situation of a financial or of a company? Looked at their history, look at how they're doing business, look at the moves they're making, the people they have in leadership. Have you looked at it? Or are you just like, I want my 2 free stocks on Robinhood? Like, where are you at? And then what are you going to do to make some steps forward? Because that's what I want to know. And when I hear some feedback from you, me and Steven will book our next date to come back. and he will take you into phase 2 of your financial wealth building journey. All right. So until next time, I love you guys. Let's go do this together.
You are listening to the When I Said Yes podcast, where we are simplifying and accelerating your success by helping you find your next yes.